Welcome to this month's video blog from me, Graham Bright, Head of Compliance and Operations at Euro Exim Bank. First of all, we're all totally aware of what's happening with the conflict concerning Russia and Ukraine. The international ramifications of that, supply chain disruption, a huge increase in pricing, a lack of certain goods being moved where Ukraine is the world's greatest provider of those particular goods, increased pricing on oil and gas affecting the whole of Europe and the world, and where we're now seeing institutions and countries turning to other providers such as Egypt and across North Africa to provide those gas supplies where they're effectively being cut off. So self-sufficiency amongst European nations is what's on the agenda and how we move forward in ensuring trade can continue. Also, we see issues with critical raw materials. These are things like bauxite, lithium, titanium, used across a number of industries such as the medical side of things, electronics, aviation, automotive. And we're all very aware of what's happening with the supply of new vehicles, for example, reliant on semiconductors. And even today, the Volkswagen head has said that the supply of electric vehicles has basically sold out. So demand is increasing, but supply is not meeting that demand. Also, we hear from the CEO of Intel that the chip shortage, which is in place at the moment, which is affecting so many industries, will last, according to CNBC, until 2024. So people's perspective and their demands are not going to be met in the short term. Cybercrime has really increased as well in the last couple of months, and we're seeing, for example, a ransomware attack on the government in Costa Rica, where there's a ransom demand for $10 million. It's not going to be paid by the government there. They don't want to be held to ransom, but where the Russian Conti group has claimed responsibility, and where Russia, again, is implementing a number of very heavy cyber attacks to ensure they can get hold of US dollars, which are sanctioned at the moment. But in terms of other types of cyber issues moving at the moment, the most common ones most certainly are a rise in the number of phishing attacks, where cyber criminals pose as legitimate institutions or directors of those, emailing victims to get hold of personal details, like login credentials, home addresses, and particularly credit card information. Denial of service attacks. We see a number of these where nation states are flooding companies to try to break down the walls of their cybersecurity. They don't gain valuable information, but what happens is that companies are incredibly impacted by having to look at their resources, their backups, their communications channels to try to keep them in business. Another more common one is secured query language, SQL injections, where code is injected into certain databases, make it impossible to look at the particular data, which is critical to a company business. And the fourth one is the man in the middle, a form of attack where a cyber criminal exchanges communications between two people and then eavesdrops on them. So not even known to the two parties in the transaction that things are happening in the meantime. So cyber is very much on the agenda, and we of course all urge every company to ensure that their security is in place and so they are protected from these new forms and continuing forms of attack. In terms of international sanctions, we know the EU in particular is urging their member states to put embargoes on Russian resources. The UK has banned management services, business consultancy, PR, accountancy services into the Russian Union. And of course, from the point of view of moving goods and services, the UK has denied access to UK ports by Russian shipping unless in case of emergency, but also detention of Russian ships or specified ships at ports or at anchorage. So yes, there are very, very stern sanctions being put in place, which are effectively restricting the shipping and the airspace and aircraft which have come from Russia. Also, from a financial point of view, SWIFT is now looking at the removal of Sberbank from the network, with two other banks potentially to follow, And we do see tougher sanctions generally going to come into the financial space, not implemented only by SWIFT, but also independent countries and the relationship they're holding in particular. Finally, going digital, one of the major projects which is going to assist trade worldwide. There are initiatives in place to standardize the use of communications of electronic records and the acceptance of those records as well. So what we see in the UK, in a few days' time, there will be ratification of the model law on electronic transferable records called MLETR. Now, the International Chamber of Commerce estimates that digitizing trade documents could generate £25 billion worth of economic growth within the next 2 years, and savings of up to $220 billion through the uptake of this particular initiative. So for trade, things are happening. Trade is continuing, and we do see that there are still opportunities in the trade space. Of course, we always exercise caution, looking at every deal on a case-by-case basis to protect not only the bank, but our customers, the jurisdictions, and the welfare of everybody in the community.